Keep it going for Taylor Rogers!
A little bit about myself. I do identify as a sapiosexual. That means that I'm primarily attracted to intelligence. That's the main quality that I'm looking for in a partner. So for me, young Sheldon is basically jail bait. Anyways, I told that joke at a comedy club a few months ago, and then after the show, someone wrote a 1-star review for the club. It was very nasty. They were like, "Oh, I didn't like it when the one guy said he wanted to fuck young Sheldon." And it's like, well, what do you like then? Folks, look, I'm used to this kind of stuff. This happens to me pretty frequently. As a comedian, I'm basically one of society's last true philosophers, so I'm always being crucified for speaking my wisdom. But this comment in particular did bother me because I was like, lady, young Sheldon is not real. And if you did any research into this topic whatsoever, you would see that the actor that plays young Sheldon is too stupid for me to want to fuck. So, just another example of our decaying media literacy in this country. I am sorry if I seem a little bit out of it up here. I did just get the Elon Musk Neuralink installed, so I am watching the Cleveland show on Tubi right now. It is taking up about half my field of vision. I do not know how to turn it off. And all my friends, they were like, don't get the Elon Musk Neuralink installed. It's potentially dangerous. When they tested it on animals, they installed it into the brains of chimpanzees, and then those chimpanzees ended up chewing their own fingers off in a state of agony. And I was like, no offense to those monkeys, but I'm built different. I will not chew my own fingers off because I have a little something called street smarts. Anyways, I had a bad dream a few months ago. I had this dream that I was competing on the show Top Chef, and the competition, it was to make gourmet tacos. And so I was like, okay, well, the first thing that you have to do is you got to make reference tacos. Reference tacos are obviously when you make a more normal style taco in order to calibrate your gourmet tacos, right? So I make my reference tacos. I turn around, I'm starting to work on my more fully formed gourmet taco concept. I turn back around, and the waiter has delivered my reference tacos to the judge. I got so pissed off, I woke up. And I rolled over, and my girlfriend, she was also awake at that point, and she looked pretty upset. And I was like, what's wrong? And she's like, I had this horrible dream that I was sexually harassed. And then I tried to tell you about it, but you didn't believe me and you got mad at me. And I was like, yeah, I also had a bad dream as well. So, anyways, my life is falling apart on the astral plane, but what else is new? Anyways, yeah, it's true. I did accidentally get addicted to kratom one time. If you're not familiar with kratom, it is a tea from Indonesia. It has a mild euphoric property. It's completely legal in the United States, and you can buy it at smoke shops. So I found out about the kratom, and I was like, okay, this could be a cool substitute for drinking on the weekends. So I started taking that instead of drinking alcohol, and it was great. Honestly, I was getting kind of like a pleasant little buzz. I was saving a lot of money on booze. I wasn't waking up hungover. The only issue is that after a couple months, my hair started falling out, and I felt worse than I ever have in my entire life. But it took me a while to figure out that it was the kratom that was causing it, because I was like, well, surely if there was an issue with this product, the concierge at 420 Zaza Kingdom would have said something to me about it by now. But apparently they don't care about customer service at all. I'm like, what kind of operation are you people running here? Let me speak to the manager. Let me speak to Jamaican Rick and Morty. But eventually I figured it was the kratom. I was like, oh, maybe the reason that I feel so bad might have something to do with this mysterious powder that I seem to be taking in larger and larger quantities earlier and earlier every day. I Googled what is kratom. Turns out kratom is actually a powerful opioid that some people say is more difficult to quit than heroin. So I was like, man, you know? That was a real yikes-a-rooney moment for me, personally. So I was like, well, I can't be addicted to something. That was the only time in my life I've ever been physically addicted to a substance, and I was like, this is embarrassing. To be addicted to something is such a childish state. You know, you're just like, oh, if I don't get my little treat, I'm gonna start shaking. It's like, grow up. So I went cold turkey. I immediately flushed the rest of the kratom that I had down the toilet. And then later on that day, I went into withdrawals. I was basically bedridden for like 3 days. I was shaking, sweating, the whole 9 yards. And what's humiliating about that is that I wasn't even withdrawing from like a real drug. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not trying to glorify or romanticize hard drugs. Obviously, they ruin a lot of people's lives. But we have to admit there is at least a little bit of like kind of cultural cachet to like, you know, Lou Reed in his leather jacket going up to Harlem to buy heroin. You know, there's nothing romantic about having the shakes because you bought too much weird tea from a guy in a fake Supreme beanie, okay? I was getting erectile dysfunction because I took too much of something sold under the brand name Shaman's Garden. Okay? I could not get it up because I took too much Druid's Blend. You cannot write a song about that. I did have a roommate that started smoking meth one time, and if you're wondering what that was like, it's actually pretty chill. And that's one thing that they don't tell you about living in a trap house, is that actually sometimes it's totally fine and nothing bad happens to you. But I did get to meet his clientele. One guy that stood out to me, he was kind of like a normal 9-to-5 office worker in Manhattan, but apparently his company changed their health insurance situation so he could no longer afford the copay for his Adderall. So the only way he could medicate himself was to buy meth from my roommate, and apparently he would make a solution with the meth and the water, and then he would administer it rectally, and then he would go into work. So if you're wondering where I stand on the whole like United Healthcare CEO shooting, I know a guy who would squirt meth up his ass every day with a turkey baster just to get through another day of work at his job that didn't even give him good enough health insurance to get his prescription, which is also just meth, by the way. So that's more or less the lens that I'm viewing that situation through politically. When I was living in the trap house, we lived right next to a Kennedy Fried Chicken. And if you're not familiar with a Kennedy Fried Chicken, it's a fried chicken chain that pretty much only exists in the hood. It's basically like, imagine if a KFC scraped the serial number off of a gun. That's more or less the vibe in there. But I would go to the Kennedy Fried Chicken late at night if I wanted a treat, and I would always order the same thing off the menu. It was a special menu item that I created. It was called the Dirty Boy Special. And the Dirty Boy Special is when you get one of their dollar cheese slices, a fried chicken thigh, then you take it home, you tear the meat and the skin off the thigh, you put it on the pizza, and then you drizzle it with ranch. Now, you can also substitute the ranch with honey mustard. That's a variation called the Dirty Lady, similar to a croque monsieur, croque madame type of dynamic. Anyways, so you eat that, and then for dessert, you go to sleep without brushing your teeth. And that is the Dirty Boy Special. It's not really a life hack per se because it will make your life worse. But I do bring that up. It's just an illustration of how when you're an artist, you do see the world differently. Some people see the menu at a Kennedy Fried Chicken and they see what's available. Others see what's possible. So I wrestled when I was in high school. And now looking back on those years, who was that one old guy that would come to our wrestling practices? Because he was not part of the school. He was not affiliated with our high school whatsoever, but he would still come and touch us. And I think when you're a kid, you don't necessarily have a good idea of what's normal and what's odd. The other thing about my high school is that we didn't have the facilities on site to host the wrestling practice, so we had to use a decommissioned elementary school a couple miles away. So when I was 14, it was the most normal thing in the world to be like, okay, it's 3 o'clock, time to get down to the old abandoned schoolhouse and go wrestle that old guy. It was just part of my routine. I never told my parents about it. It was just something that I did. And I feel like that it would be harder for something like that to happen these days, what with helicopter parents, woke, etc. But you have to understand, this was the early 2000s. It was a different time. Air Bud was a popular franchise. We were just more open to the idea of an unconventional teammate. It was just kind of part of the zeitgeist of the time. And the thing is, like, the guy, honestly, he was never creepy to us. He never really tried anything. And so I think he was just a lonely guy that wanted to find connection with other people. I think it's easy to forget that we live in a deeply lonely and alienated society, and that community can really look like a lot of different things. Sometimes a community can just be a 55-year-old electrician and a couple dozen pubescent boys that run the double chicken wing on them. And honestly, I think that's beautiful. I think that's cool. One time I was at this thrift store and I was kind of shuffling through this stack of old postcards featuring World War II era bombshell pinup women. And as I was doing that, it was just me and the older guy that owned the shop. And he kind of sidled up behind me and he looked at those postcards and he's like, yeah, they don't make them like that anymore. And I was like, these are drawings, actually. These are just illustrations. And the point that I'm trying to make with this is I think boomers have really low cartoon porn media literacy. And I think that it's actually becoming a problem now with the proliferation of AI, because now if I get on social media, the algorithm's always trying to feed me these AI-generated models. And when I click on the comments section, it's all men between the ages of 45 and 70 just absolutely losing their mind. They do not have, like, the mental systems to process what's going on. Like, they're not built for... It's like giving a dog a Jolly Rancher. Like, they're going haywire. I mean, I saw two guys arguing in the comments section over whether or not one of these women has had plastic surgery. One guy was just like being like, oh, I don't know why all these beautiful young women see the need to get work done. And another guy, more of a white knight, being like, you don't know that she's a natural beauty, yeah, blah, blah, blah. She has like 6 fingers on one hand. So people are worried about AI getting too advanced and then it destroys humanity. It's not gonna have to actually get any more advanced. Like, we're basically already there. It does make me mad to read these comments because a lot of the guys are like, oh, what's your Venmo? What's your Cash App? Can I fly you out? Folks, call me old-fashioned, but I think that if you're going to be a filthy little pay pig, it should be for a real human woman with a giant ass. I'm sorry, that is just the way that I was raised. And now they're trying to offshore and automate our Instagram thirst traps just like they did with manufacturing back in the 70s. Folks, our nation is becoming a net importer of jack-off material. It is an economic ticking time bomb. Anyways, I didn't mean to get political. Personally, I'm actually very bad at distinguishing left and right. I have a really hard time with it. And I don't think it's my fault, actually. I think that it's a bad system. My right is your left. That is a deranged statement. How many times have you been talking to someone and you're saying some shit like, it's to your left if you're kind of looking at it straight on. This is how we get around. I'm sorry, there's other systems, actually. I've looked into it, okay? I've Googled left and right bad. There's other systems. You can look this up, this is true. But anthropologists have found there's certain indigenous tribes that don't have a concept for left and right. They only know north, south, east, west. And they can automatically navigate based off of the cardinal directions because they learned the system their entire life. It's intuitive for them. So if you were to stick one of these indigenous people in a windowless room, which, by the way, I would never do. But if one of these indigenous people were to enter a windowless room of their own accord, they would instantly be able to locate true north and then navigate off of that. So what I'm proposing is that we're all sent to re-education camps and we learn that system because I personally am bad at left and right. Folks, this is why I'm the bravest comic in the game right now. You hear a lot of talk about, oh, I'm saying this stuff that everyone's thinking, but no one has the balls to say. I'm saying this stuff that nobody is thinking and nobody likes. I have other opinions as well. I think they should let you off the plane as soon as it lands. As soon as we touch down, our contract is over, okay? What are we doing here? You guys can stay on the plane. I'm gonna be walking around on the tarmac making money moves, okay? You're telling me that I cannot exit the flight that I paid for. This is a Kafkaesque nightmare, honestly. It is a violation of my rights of habeas corpus. It is unconstitutional. That's why as soon as those wheels hit the ground, I am in the cockpit screaming at the pilot, "Am I being detained, sir? Sir, am I being detained?" One thing that I do really like, actually, is when I'm on the highway and we drive by one of those signs that says that you're now entering a new watershed, because I'm like, okay, vibe shift, you know? Oh, this is the Yadkin County River Basin? Honestly, it's kind of serving cunt. It's kind of serving cunt, and I fucks with it. This is a topic I've actually been researching for the last few months. This is all real, you can look it up. Just a little background. In the early 90s, a woman, a conspiracy theorist, she wrote a book called What If Everything You Know About AIDS Is Wrong, okay? Where she puts forth this kind of pseudoscientific theory that AIDS isn't real, that it was an invention of the medical establishment or the government. It's not funny. It's not funny to spread misinformation about a deadly virus. But what is funny is that apparently in the late 90s, the bassist for the Foo Fighters got his hands on this book. And he was like, uh-oh, AIDS isn't real. I'm the bassist for the Foo Fighters. I gotta do something, okay? He convinces the rest of the Foo Fighters to play an AIDS denialist benefit concert in the year 2000. I don't know how you have a benefit concert for a disease you don't think is real, but I wasn't there. A few years after that, they allow an AIDS denialist documentary to use one of their songs in the soundtrack. That song was Learn to Fly. That's funny. But then a couple years after that, the Foo Fighters erased all the information on their website linking them to the AIDS denialist movement. They never spoke of it again and just kind of quietly distanced themselves from the entire situation, which means that at some point in the mid to the late 2000s, Dave Grohl had to sit down with his bassist and be like, hey man, I actually did a little bit more research into this, and turns out AIDS is real. AIDS is real, and they didn't really need our input on this because we are the Foo Fighters. Researchers have mostly got this covered, so we can just kind of go back to focusing on our mid-tempo alternative rock songs. And to their credit, honestly, the Foo Fighters then started donating money to legitimate LGBTQ organizations, which is cool. And I think right now, Dave Grohl is under a lot of fire because he cheated on his wife and is having a baby with his mistress. But we also have to understand that he also got the Foo Fighters to start believing in AIDS again. So people are complicated. You know what I'm saying? Like, we all contain multitudes. And I think our society doesn't give enough room for grace and redemption and for people to change for the positive. And I think that's sad because have we not all, in our own way, played an AIDS Isn't Real benefit concert, metaphorically? Like, whatever that might be for us, you know? And I'll tell you this, as I was researching this topic, just spending hours online, slowly radicalizing myself on the relationship between the Foo Fighters and the AIDS epidemic, I was on the Foo Fighters message board where someone brought up this topic and they were like, oh, what does this mean for the Foo Fighters legacy? And the top rated comment was one user saying, as a gay Foo Fighters fan, to me, this is a non-issue. And folks, who are we to say any different? Anyways, thank you so much. My name is Taylor Rogers. Thank you so much for coming out.